Hi, my artsy folks. My name is Elina. I'm a musician, a photographer, a researcher, and an organizer of artistic events, in a sense. This blog is about organization, administration, grant writing for artists, fundraising for artists. So all the things that you need to know if you're an artist and you are promoting yourself and your artistic work. Let's go. Today's video is about grant writing, and I will give you several important points in detail, do's and don'ts. If you're new to grant writing, it might be helpful to you. First of all, when you are trying to apply for grants, when you're researching, have your own database and prove your eligibility. A lot of grants are directed towards a certain group of people. For example, there can be grants for women in poetry living in a certain area. If you are not from that area, if you're not a woman, you're not writing poetry, then this grant program is not for you. So first of all, you have to only save the information of those grant programs that are applicable for you, your team, your project. Now we'll talk about the project description, the main texts that you will have to include with every single application you're working on. A lot of applications already have the specific questions in the main field. For example, you have a text field in the center and then on the side or on top. So there will be a list of questions that you have to answer in your text. The examples are what, who, where, when, how, and why. I have already discussed these things in my previous videos. Check it out. However, it's very, very important to triple check when you are doing your grant applications that these points are underlined really clearly in your text. Another important point is why is your project needed here and now? We already discussed it as well. However, for your grant applications, this is probably the most important question, the answer for which they're expecting. If you're not including that information, most likely you won't receive any financial aid from that foundation. Make sure you keep to your word count. Most of the applications have their form that tells you that you are, for example, below or above the maximum word count, and then you cannot type anymore. However, not all the forms have it. Some forms let you type more text, but then when you send the application, if it was too long, your text will be cut exactly at that symbol. For example, if you have 1,000 words and it's counting words, or you have a certain amount of symbols, it will cut exactly where it reaches that point. And your text might be cut in the middle of a sentence. You don't want that. So please make sure that you double check your word count, your symbol count, whatever works for your grant application. It's really easy to do. Just look up something online. For word count online, there are tons of text checkers, spell checkers as well. Needless to say, of course, you have to spell check your application. But you have to count all the words, and please don't exceed the limit. Reiterate your sentences, your points, change some wording, use other terms, but never exceed the word count, because even if you're able to insert a large amount of text into your application, most likely it will be cut out and you don't want this. A side note, try not to use a lot of abbreviations. I know a story when someone was applying for a grant for a business school, and instead of stating the name that it's the business school so-and-so, they just abbreviated it. What do we get at the end? This was really funny, but please don't use abbreviations. Really try to shorten your text if it's too long. Also, that's an important point to rethink what can be cut out, what may be not necessary, what's extra. But don't overuse abbreviations, because it might lead to really uncomfortable interpretations of your text. So as I already said, many applications for grants have questions next to the text fields. Make sure you do answer every single question. Sometimes some applications tell you you have to answer 3 of these 5, for example, or a certain amount. However, it's really important that you try to answer all of them anyway. It will show that you're responsible, it will show that you're reliable, that you're serious, and you are taking this application very professionally. If you already wrote your own project description, it's probably going to be necessary that you adapt it for every single grant application, because a lot of grant applications are unique. There is probably no way to apply to all of them or most of them with the exact same text. So you have to take that basic description that you wrote for yourself and change it so you're able to fit that description into the requirements of a certain grant application that you're working on. As I already mentioned in one of the previous videos, please get straight to the point in your description and make sure that you leave out some romantic intros that you had about maybe that you had a dream about doing this project 5 years ago and how you got to this, and you're wandering around the street and then you met somebody, and I mean, all these things that lead to a project, they are very beautiful, but unfortunately that would be the waste of the time of the jurors who are deciding whether to give you the money or not. You don't want that. You want to catch them with the concept right away. So make sure that you specify what kind of a project that is, who's participating, where it's going to happen, what do you need for the execution, when it's going to happen, and why it's happening, why is it relevant, and so on. This is much more important than the dreamy, beautiful intros with philosophy and various personal thoughts. So to conclude that part, your first paragraph is the most important. You have to make sure you don't lose your jurors from the beginning. Please don't complain, don't write something that without your help it will not be possible for me and my team to execute this project, things like that. Leave it out. All the foundations want to see that you thought of a contingency plan. What does it mean? It means that if they don't give you the money, they want to see that you're still able to carry this project out. So you apply it to other foundations and make sure to indicate that, perhaps in the budget. I'll talk about the budget in a separate video. Make sure that you are indicating your ticket revenue, estimate ticket revenue also. Maybe you have private donors, maybe you have a crowdfunding campaign running. We already talked about that in the last video. However, they want to see that you will make this project happen no matter what. You can say something, for example, like this. If we don't have enough funds, we will decrease the number of performances. If you have several performances, if you're a performing artist, or if you are renting a space for your exhibit, if you're a visual artist, you might rent for a lesser amount of days, but you have to be willing to consider other means by which you will still be able to carry out your project successfully. If you already have some funding definitely coming, if something is confirmed, please indicate that. It will actually do you good, because if the foundation see that you are getting the money from another foundation, let's say, they will consider you more seriously in a way, because they will see that you already are getting some help from another foundation, which kind of means for them that you are serious enough, that you are a professional, and you are getting support from another foundation. And they will think, aha, so this artist is already quite advanced, they are really good, and we might support this artist as well. So don't hide. If you already have some aid coming in, make sure that you do indicate it. They kind of want to be in a good company of your supporters. So it's better for your track record, for your reputation, if you already have another foundation, if you have several of them, to show that you're getting your support from multiple sources. Now, let's briefly tackle the ask amount. Most of the foundations have their own minimum and maximum amount, and ask for more rather than less. Don't be too humble, because first of all, it has to be realistic. If you ask for too little, it doesn't look realistic in most of the cases, because it will just look strange, and they will have questions. How come you're about to present a project, maybe it's quite a big of a project, for that small amount of money? Even if it's your first grant application ever, just go for it. Ask, well, depending on the amount, if it's the maximum, but don't ask for the minimum, because it will look strange. Speaking from experience, ask for more and be ready that if you are funded, they might give you less. Most likely, they will give you less money than what you're asking for. It just works this way, because they have to distribute a lot of funds between a lot of artists. So be prepared that there's not enough for everyone. It's normal. And make sure that you'll be ready to cut your list of the expenses a little bit, which means that you will have to write more in the beginning. You will have to write that you need more money than the amount that you are still able to carry your project out with. You know what I mean? So if you are getting less from them at the end, you still should be able to make it work. And this will also show you in the eyes of the people who are running the foundation as a professional and as a good organizer, because they will see that you are still able to make this project happen even when there is less aid, which will mean that you possess strong organizational skills, and they will know that they are investing in a good cause. And they will most likely keep you on their list for the future applications. So in a way, you're building your reputation. Make sure that the info on your collaborators is really clearly written. If they are asking for biographies, give them biographies. If they are asking for press kits, give them press kits. Resumes, it's resumes. It should not be a biography instead of a resume. If they want a paragraph of text or a page of text, don't give them the list, and vice versa. That has to be formatted clearly. They will ask you to provide examples of your work. Most likely it would be recordings, photographs, videos, things like that. A lot of foundations ask you for a certain amount of files or minutes of the video or audio to listen or watch. Make sure that you indicate your cue points. If you're asked for 5 minutes of a video, don't submit a longer work without indicating the cue points. Please watch between this minute and that minute, or that minute and that minute. There can be a few cue points. Don't include 10 examples if you are asked for 5. Please make sure that you read the description and guidelines very carefully before you are going to start working on your grant application. When writing about your organization, your track record, maybe past experience, because you are asked these things quite often in the application process, make sure that you know your strengths and you can display them. So you can write that, for example, you had a difficult situation of a certain kind and you were able to resolve it with your team, or maybe you had a team member substitute, things like that, how you're able to carry your problems out if they happened. When you're asked for your history, which is often the case, make sure that you have a track record from the past. So you can say that you worked on that and that project with so and so. Your team exists maybe from a certain point this year or another year. So think of something that you have done before that can be applied to this present application and that can help you. So know your strengths, know how to display them. You will most likely be asked for a timeline of the process. So go back to when your idea started and indicate that as a starting point. So you can say that during a certain month of a certain year, you had the process of brainstorming happening. Then you're looking for collaborators during the next time period, for example. Then you were developing the collaborative work. Maybe if you're a performer, preparing your own parts and your collaborators were working on their parts. Then you started rehearsing together between this and that month, and you started applying for funding, or you are applying for funding, and then it's the projected timeline. For example, what you're planning to do between the next few months. So write it out before your projected premiere or opening date. Make sure that you have it for yourself and that you have it for your foundations, for your grant applications, because It will give them a clear schedule of your work, of your project preparation. And it will help you and your team as well. So indicate when you're starting the marketing campaign. Indicate when you're renting the venue for rehearsals, for example. Things like this are really important to point out, and they will shape up your own preparation process. Before you apply for grants, do a research on the venues locally and secure some venue collaborations. What do I mean with this? When you can propose a project to a venue, maybe they will rent out the venue to you, maybe they will give you a discount, maybe they will host it for free, who knows, but it always helps if you already have your venue pre-booked in a way. So you can tell them, I'm applying for this grant, I would like to perform this project at your venue. Would you be interested in a collaboration? Maybe if they say yes, you could have a letter of commitment from them. This is very helpful in most of the grant applications because the foundations will see that you are serious enough that you already pre-booked the venue. So it will give you some extra good points, and maybe it will help you in the way to get your funding. A lot of people are scared to do that. However, please don't be. As long as you make sure that you don't have to pay that venue if you cancel that pre-booking. So don't book, don't sign a contract if you're still not sure about your funding. So maybe talk to them and tell them that after a certain date, I will hear back from this foundation and I will know if we are getting this amount of money so I could rent your venue. I'm pretty sure that most of the venues will agree on this. At least some of the venues would. It's a good start when you're still not sure whether you're getting the funding or not. Plus, most likely, you will have to apply to foundations with dates and venues. And in order to have your dates and venues, you have to contact the venues first. Imagine this. If you are not sure where and when you're performing your project and you're applying to get a grant, they will not have a clear picture of what's going on. They will think, okay, there is this artist, there is this concept, maybe some other group of people. However, they are doing something, they are not sure when and where. How can we fund that if there is no rent estimate in the budget, for example? Because how come you would write the rent estimate if you have no idea where you're going to have your project happen, right? So you have to make sure that a venue was already contacted. So venues first, foundation second. A rule of thumb. Before you start your applications, invest some time into preparing a 2-3 minute trailer, maybe some photos, some media. Because you know what? A short video can make a brighter impression than several pages of text. This can be much more catchy than writing and writing and writing. Maybe invest into hiring a professional to make a trailer for you, or invest your time and energy and learn a new skill of how to film your own trailer and take good photos. It doesn't have to be made with a film camera. Not necessarily. Now most of us have some kind of a cell phone with a camera. If you cannot hire anyone, if you don't know how to make photos, how to edit videos, at least use your phone, make some recordings, play around with that. It still should be fun, and you will learn how to do some things really, really fast. You won't even notice it. Now, a lot of foundations offer a draft review. Please use this opportunity to actually hear back about your draft, well, your ready-to-go application, unless you're really stuck somewhere and you have no idea how to get out of there. But prepare your application in advance, sign up for that draft review, make sure this is the best version of the text that you can send them, and then do connect with them and hear back, because they will be happy to tell you what you can improve in order to particularly receive the funding from them, because they know who they're going to give the money to, what kind of a concept they are expecting, what's maybe not covered in your application that has to be covered. Maybe you did not research on something locally and they need it there in your text. So do connect with them and do a draft review. I have used every single opportunity to get a draft review, and I'm very, very happy that I did, because this actually helped me write better grant applications much more than watching and listening to webinars and workshops. This is a real life experience. They will discuss your particular application, your particular text, and you will improve much, much faster when somebody is tackling your own points. Please don't ever send your application late at night on the day of the deadline. That's a no-go. Please set yourself an earlier deadline, 10 days earlier, a few days earlier. Please dedicate enough time to this. Make yourself busy with this earlier and submit earlier, but you will not be stressed. If you need info from your collaborators, don't tell them the real deadline. Make sure you tell them the deadline that is earlier than your early deadline. This is a good tip, because a lot of people don't send you their files on time. And it will help you in the end, because it will be very, very sad if you actually will not be able to submit your application when one of your collaborators will just not send you the info that you need from them. In the case of a rejection, which will happen, it happens to all of us. Don't go desperate, it's fine. Please do schedule a feedback call with them. Most of the foundations offer it, and that's very helpful. In a way, that's more helpful than getting the funding, because when you get the funding, nobody's doing your draft review. Your application was good and you got the funding. However, when your application was not that good that you got a rejection, you have an opportunity for a free call with them. Usually it's maybe 10 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, but they will go through all the points that the jurors wrote out about your application. And you will know exactly what was not precise enough. Maybe something was lacking in the work sample. Maybe something was lacking in your text. Maybe you didn't specify a certain point that they were actually looking for, and that's what got you drowned. Make sure you do sign up for a feedback call, because it will help you tremendously. I use, again, every single opportunity. I signed up for every single feedback call, and I think that it really helped me get the funding in the future from the same foundation. So I had a history of applying 3 times, 3 years in a row. My application didn't pass the first time. It was my first time ever writing the grant applications. I had no idea how to do it. It seemed to be harder than something I could ever do in my life. But I signed up for the feedback call, and I had a huge list of the things that I needed to improve after that. The next time, same thing happened. My application was already written better. I still didn't get any funding from the same funder. I signed up for a feedback call once again, and they said that it was not that bad, but still there are some points lacking. I wrote them down. In the next application, 3rd year in a row, I already made sure that all the points that they mentioned in the first and second application during those first 2 years were not missing. I got the money. Which means that your feedback calls and your draft reviews are actually going to do you good. So this is it for this video on tackling grant writing. If you're doing this for the first time, take it seriously. Have enough time scheduled for it. Don't postpone with your early deadline. Like this video if this info was helpful. Subscribe, hit the bell button, comment your questions below, comment with feedback. Tell me what was helpful. Tell me what is there that you still want to know about fundraising, grant writing for artists. I hope I can help you with these things in my future videos. In the meantime, have a great week. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.